Welcome to my YouTube channel, Audio Liege. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Right now, as you listen to this, there is a war happening inside your mind. Not between you and your boss, not between you and your circumstances, between you and you. Every single day, you wake up with potential. And every single day, before you even get out of bed, your own mind begins to talk you out of it. You don't have a talent problem. You don't have a luck problem. You have a thinking problem. And today, that stops. This is Stop Overthinking. And by the time this is over, you will never see your own mind the same way again. Chapter 1. Your mind is not your friend. It's your warden. Pause. Let the silence sit for 2 full seconds before the first word. Let's start with the truth nobody told you. Your mind is not on your side. I know that sounds wrong. I know everything you've ever been taught points in the opposite direction. Trust your gut. Listen to your instincts. Follow your heart. You have heard those phrases your entire life. And in certain contexts, there is wisdom in them. But right now, in this chapter, in this moment, we are talking about something different. We are talking about the version of your mind that shows up when you are on the edge of something important. When you are about to make a call that could change your life, when you are standing at the door of a new decision, a new risk, a new version of yourself. That version of your mind is not your ally. That version of your mind is your warden. And today, we are going to expose it completely. The mind's real job. Here is what they never teach you in school. Here is what no self-help poster on a classroom wall ever told you clearly enough. Your brain's primary function is not to make you successful. It is not to make you happy. It is not to push you towards your potential or help you build the life you say you want when you are lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering why nothing is changing. Your brain's primary function is to keep you alive. That's it. That is the whole job. Keep the body breathing, avoid threats, conserve energy, return to the known, repeat. For 100,000 years, that programming saved the human species. When the threat was a predator, a famine, a rival tribe, that threat detection system was the difference between survival and death. But you are not running from a predator. You are trying to start a business. You are trying to have a...
Chapter 2. The Thoughts That Never Were. How Overthinking Destroys Futures That Haven't Happened Yet. I want you to think about something you have been putting off. Not a small thing, a real thing. A decision, an action, a conversation, a step that you know, somewhere underneath all the noise, you need to take. Got it? Hold it in your mind. Now tell me honestly, when you think about taking that step, where does your mind go? Does it go to the best possible outcome? Does it picture the version of events where it works, where it lands, where it opens the door you've been standing outside of for months? Maybe years? Or does it go somewhere else? Does it go to the rejection, the failure, the embarrassment, the imaginary audience watching you fall short and confirming every doubt you've ever had about yourself? I already know the answer. Because overthinkers don't travel forward into possibility. They travel forward into catastrophe. And they do it so automatically, so effortlessly, so convincingly, that they mistake the trip for reality. You are not predicting your future. You are poisoning it. And today, we end that. The fictional future is running your real life. Here is the thing about the catastrophic future your mind creates. It is extraordinarily detailed. It has characters, it has dialogue, it has consequences and reactions, and specific, vivid outcomes. Your mind builds it with the precision of an architect and the creativity of a novelist. And none of it has ever happened. Not one scene, not one conversation, not one rejection or failure or humiliation that your overthinking mind has constructed has actually occurred. It exists entirely inside your skull, a complete fiction built from anxiety and assumption and the distorted memory of old wounds. But here is the problem. Here is why this matters so deeply.
Chapter 5. Who taught you to be afraid? The origins of your overthinking. I want to go somewhere different with you in this chapter. We have spent the last 4 chapters examining what overthinking does, how it disguises itself as preparation, how it poisons futures that haven't happened, how it turns the comfort zone into a permanent address, how it takes your greatest intellectual strength and uses it as a weapon against your own momentum. Now, I want to talk about where it came from. Because here is what I know about you, not as a guess, but as a near certainty based on everything we have covered so far. You were not always like this. There was a version of you, younger, less guarded, less calculating, who acted without the 40-step internal review process, who tried things without running the risk assessment first, who failed at something and got back up without spending 3 weeks analyzing what the failure meant about their fundamental worth as a human being. That version of you existed. I promise you it did. And then something happened. Or rather, a series of things happened. Small things mostly, unremarkable in isolation, but cumulative in their effect. And slowly, over time, without anyone announcing it or intending it or even noticing it, you were trained to be afraid. You inherited this fear, but you are the only one who can return it. The classroom of fear. Let's go back. Not to dramatize your past or to assign blame or to give you a comfortable explanation for why your present circumstances are someone else's fault. That is not what this is. This is about understanding the architecture, because you cannot dismantle a structure you cannot see. Think about the environment you grew up in. And I mean really think about it. Not the version you describe at dinner parties, but the actual texture of it. The unspoken rules, the emotional climate, the messages, stated and unstated, about what happened when you got something wrong. For many overthinkers, and I mean the majority.
Chapter 6. The 5-second funeral. How to kill a thought before it kills your day. For begin, sharp, precise, clinical in its authority. Everything we have covered so far has been building to this moment. We identified the warden. We exposed the fictional future. We named the comfort zone for what it actually is. We dismantled the intelligence trap. We traced the fear all the way back to its origin. And now, right now, we get practical in a way that will change the daily texture of your life if you let it. Because here is what I have noticed about people who understand overthinking intellectually, but cannot stop it in real time. They know what the problem is. They can describe it with remarkable accuracy. They have read the books, listened to the podcasts, had the conversations. They understand at a conceptual level that their overthinking is fear-based and learned and not an accurate representation of reality. And then the thought arrives, the catastrophic one, the specific, vivid, emotionally charged scenario that their mind generates in response to anything that matters. And they still get consumed by it. Because understanding a thought pattern and interrupting a thought pattern are two completely different skills. And the second one, the interruption, is a timing problem, not a thinking problem. You are not your thoughts. You are what you do in the 5 seconds after your thoughts appear. The window nobody told you about. Here is a fact about your brain that changes everything if you actually absorb it. Between the moment a thought is generated and the moment it becomes a fully installed belief, a belief that drives your emotional state, shapes your perception, and governs your next decision, there is a window. 5 seconds, sometimes less, but it is always there. In that window, the thought is still just a thought. It has not yet recruited the emotional brain.
Chapter 7. Stop waiting for certainty. Certainty is a lie they sold you. 2 seconds of silence. Then begin. Slow, measured, almost confrontational in its stillness. I want to ask you about the thing you are waiting for. Not the opportunity, not the right moment, not the resources or the connections or the perfect set of circumstances that would finally make the risk feel reasonable. The thing underneath all of that, the specific internal condition you have decided, consciously or not, must be present before you are allowed to move. And for most overthinkers, if you strip away all the practical justifications, all the legitimate sounding reasons, all the responsible feeling explanations for why now is not quite the right time, what you find at the bottom is one word: certainty. You are waiting to be certain. Certain it will work. Certain you are ready. Certain the outcome will justify the risk. Certain that if you step off the edge, there will be ground beneath your feet before you land. And I need to tell you something about that certainty. It does not exist. Not as a starting condition. Not as something you can acquire through sufficient preparation or research or prayer or patience. Not as something that arrives when you have finally thought about it long enough or planned carefully enough or waited humbly enough. It does not exist before the action. It has never existed before the action. And every person who told you, directly or by example, that you should feel certain before you commit, made you a promise that reality was never going to keep. Clarity does not come before the decision. Clarity comes because of the decision. The certainty myth. Let me show you exactly how pervasive this myth is, because it is everywhere. It is embedded in the language we use, the advice we give each other, the standards we apply to our own choices before we will allow ourselves to commit to them. Chapter 8. The opinions that own you. Stop living inside other people's heads. I want you to think about the last time you stopped yourself from doing something. Not because you lacked the ability, not because the opportunity wasn't there, not because the timing was genuinely wrong or the resources were genuinely unavailable, because of what someone might think. A specific someone, probably, not an abstract public, a face, a name. Someone from your past or your present whose imagined reaction to your action became more powerful than your actual desire to take it. Maybe it was a person who criticized you once, years ago. Maybe it was a peer whose approval you have been quietly chasing for longer than you would like to admit. Maybe it was a parent, a former colleague, an ex, an old friend who moved in a different direction and whose imagined judgment of your choices still somehow arrives before your own. You edited yourself for that person. You made yourself smaller, quieter, less visible. Not because they asked you to, not because they are present in your daily life, not because their opinion has any actual authority over your choices, but because your overthinking mind installed them as a permanent resident judge. And you have been performing for that judge and protecting yourself from that judge's imaginary verdict ever since. Here is the truth about that judge. They are not watching you. They are not thinking about you. They are not monitoring your choices or tracking your progress or waiting with specific anticipation to evaluate your next move. They are living their own life, with their own overthinking, their own self-consciousness, their own internal audience of judges performing exactly the same function in their mind that they perform in yours. They are not watching you as closely as you think. And even if they were, so what? The spotlight that doesn't exist. Let me introduce you to one of the most well-documented phenomena in social psychology. It is called the spotlight effect. And once you understand it fully, once you really absorb what the research shows, it will permanently change how much authority you give to imagined judgment. Here is what the spotlight effect describes. Human beings dramatically, consistently, and universally.
I want you to pay very close attention to the next thing I say. Not because it is complicated. It is not complicated. It is actually one of the simplest distinctions in this entire audiobook. But simple does not mean small. And this particular distinction, this specific, precise difference between two ways of describing yourself, may be the most important thing you hear in these 10 chapters. Here it is. There is a catastrophic difference between saying, I am an overthinker, and saying, I have been overthinking. Read those two sentences again. Feel the difference between them. Because on the surface, they appear to be describing the same thing, the same person, the same pattern, the same struggle. They are not describing the same thing. They are describing two completely different futures. The first sentence, I am an overthinker, is a declaration of identity. It is a statement about who you fundamentally are. And identity, by definition, is not a behavior. You cannot decide to stop being what you are. You cannot willpower your way out of a permanent characteristic. You cannot use techniques and practices to overcome your own essential nature. When you say, I am an overthinker, you are building a cage and calling it a personality. You are signing a lease on a limitation and agreeing, without fully realizing it, to live there indefinitely. The second sentence, I have been overthinking, is a description of behavior, past tense, temporary, a pattern that has a history and therefore, crucially, powerfully, a possible end. Behaviors can be changed, habits can be broken, patterns can be interrupted and replaced and rewired through consistent, deliberate, identity-aligned action. The difference between those two sentences
is the difference between a ceiling and a starting point. And every single time you have introduced yourself to yourself as an overthinker, every time you have explained your hesitation or your paralysis or your inaction.
Chapter 10. The day you decide. One decision is all that separates you from everything you want. We have arrived at the last chapter, and I want you to feel the weight of that. Not as a formality, not as a transition sentence between the content and the credits, as a reality. You have spent the last 9 chapters doing something that most people never do. You sat with the uncomfortable truth about how your mind operates. You looked directly at the warden, at the fictional future, at the comfort zone, at the paralysis, at the fear's origin, at the imaginary audience. You did not look away. You did not skip to the parts that felt easier. And you have arrived here, at the final chapter, with something you did not have when you pressed play. You have clarity. Not certainty. We dismantled the certainty myth in Chapter 7. Not the absence of fear. The fear is still there. It will always be there when something genuinely matters. Not a perfect plan or a guaranteed outcome or a fully formed strategy with color-coded sections and cross-referenced projections. Clarity about what the problem actually is, about where it came from, about what it has cost you, and what it will continue to cost you if today ends the same way every other day has ended, with the decision deferred and the action postponed and the waiting continuing, patient and bottomless and completely, permanently unsatisfied. You have that clarity now. And clarity without decision is just expensive self-awareness. So today, in this chapter, in this final conversation, we are going to make the decision. Stop overthinking. The silent habit that is killing your potential every single day. Closing. The final word. Everything changes now. 5 full seconds of silence. The longest pause in the entire audiobook. Let it sit. Let it demand attention. Then begin. Quieter than every chapter before, but more forceful than any of them. Stay with me for one more moment. Don't skip ahead. Don't reach for the next thing. Don't let the habit that brought you to this audiobook, the habit of moving to the next thought before the current one has fully landed, steal this moment from you. Because this moment is different from every moment that came before it in these last several hours. Every chapter before this one was preparation. This moment is the decision. And those are not the same thing. You know that now. You have known it since Chapter 4, when we sat with the entrepreneur whose 47-page business plan never became a business. You know that preparation without decision is just sophisticated delay. You know that understanding without action is just expensive self-awareness. You have done the understanding. Now comes the only part that actually changes your life. So before the music fades and the final words land and you move back into the ordinary hours of your day, I need you to bring everything we have covered into one place. Not as a summary, as a